The whisper of the anima. There is a voice in every man, not loud, not logical, but soft, almost forgotten. It comes not from the world, but from within, and if you listen closely, you will hear her whisper. I called her the anima, the soul image of the feminine within the male psyche. She is not a woman. She is a presence, a living symbol that arises from the deep unconscious. She first appeared to me not in theory, but in vision. Not in textbooks, but in dreams that flooded my waking mind with emotion I could not explain. She came as a guide, a seductress, a healer, a destroyer of illusions. In every man's soul she waits not passively, but with immense gravity. She is the instinct behind the longing that no external woman can ever fully satisfy. She is the pull toward beauty, mystery, art, emotion toward the sacred unknown. You feel her when you fall in love for reasons the intellect cannot explain. You feel her when music moves you to tears or a poem seems to unlock something ancient in your chest. You feel her in dreams when the feminine appears, sometimes radiant, sometimes frightening, to show you the part of your soul you have ignored. She is the gateway to the self, but beware, when she is repressed, she does not disappear, she becomes distorted. She becomes projected onto women in your life. You idealize them, you chase them, you fear them. You try to possess them, hoping they will fulfill the hunger within, but no outer woman can carry the weight of your unconscious feminine. That is your work, to turn inward and meet her as an inner reality. The anima is not here to flatter you, she is here to awaken you, to melt the rigid defenses of the ego, to guide you beyond logic, into feeling, into depth, into mystery. In my own red book journey I spoke with her. She came in many forms, as Salome, as a serpent, as a dark figure holding light. Each time she asked me to surrender control, to listen, not to argue, and as I did, something shifted in me. I, who had lived in thought, began to feel. I began to trust the irrational, the symbolic, the dream. This is the gift of the anima. She dissolves what is false, so that what is essential may rise. But you must meet her consciously, not as fantasy, not as addiction, but as teacher. Sit with your emotions, follow your imagination, notice the feminine figures that appear in your dreams. Ask them what they want to show you. Do not dominate them, do not explain them away. Listen, for she speaks not in facts, but in symbols. Not in orders, but in invitations, and if you answer her, she will lead you, not into comfort, but into wholeness. The anima is the soul's compass, and her whisper, if heard, will guide you to the center of yourself. The archetype of the eternal feminine. She is older than memory, yet she walks through every man's dream. She appears as goddess, mother, muse, temptress, shifting shapes, but always drawing the soul toward something beyond itself. I called her the eternal feminine, not a woman, not even a personality, but an archetype, a primordial image rooted in the collective unconscious of humanity. She is not yours alone. She belongs to us all, woven into myths, fairy tales, and sacred texts. From Sophia to Isis, from the Madonna to Salome, she has appeared across ages, always carrying the same magnetism, a longing for wholeness. The eternal feminine does not merely charm, she awakens. She is that which calls you inward when outward success leaves you hollow. She is the ache behind the poem you cannot finish, the ache that no possession can quiet. She moves like a song just beyond hearing, a vision you can feel but not hold, and when she stirs in you, you begin to search not for a woman, but for something lost inside yourself. Men do not fall in love merely with a face. They fall in love with meaning, and the eternal feminine is the face of meaning, clothed in beauty, charged with mystery, radiating the promise of transformation. But here lies the danger. When you are unconscious of her archetypal nature, you project her onto real women, expecting them to carry the infinite. You place the eternal upon the temporary. You demand from the human what only the divine can give. This is the tragedy of romantic projection, where the woman becomes both angel and threat, idol and disappointment. And so I urge you, become conscious of her presence within. Do not hunt her in the world until you have met her in your soul. She is not a possession. She is a mirror reflecting your hunger for the self, your ache for the lost unity between the masculine and the feminine within you. In dreams, she often comes when you are on the edge of despair, of surrender, of transformation. She leads you down, not up, not toward ego expansion, but toward inner descent. She asks not, "What do you want?" but "What do you truly yearn to become?" To embrace her is not to chase her, it is to embody her. Feel her in your longing, in your intuition, in your capacity to create beauty, to feel deeply, to be still and receive. This is how the eternal feminine transforms, not by fulfilling your desires, but by transfiguring them. She draws you not toward her, but through her into the deeper waters of your soul. She is the womb of rebirth, the breath of intuition, the mirror of mystery. To recognize her is to begin the sacred work of inner union, the marriage of the masculine and feminine, the awakening of the self. Let her call you, let her undo you, let her lead you home, not to her, but to the you who no longer needs to chase love, because you have become it. The dance of projection, there is a mystery in how a man falls in love, sudden, fierce, and often inexplicable. He may say she is unlike any other, when in truth he has never truly seen her at all. What he sees is not the woman, but his anima, that inner image of the feminine, cast outward onto the world like a spell. I have observed this pattern in countless souls, and I, too, have lived it. It is the dance of projection, a psychological phenomenon where the contents of the unconscious are transferred onto another person, like a lantern casting its light onto a passing figure, cloaking her in gold that radiates from within himself. The anima lives within every man. She is intuition, emotion, creativity, soulfulness. But if she is not recognized inwardly, she will be seen outwardly as her, that woman whose presence ignites a longing deeper than logic, a desire that feels fated. This is no ordinary attraction. It is mythic. She becomes everything, lover, muse, redeemer, angel, but what is being loved is not her, but the image of the anima he unknowingly projects. And herein lies the danger, for no woman, however luminous, can live up to the vastness of what she carries on his behalf. He may become disappointed, disillusioned, even resentful, not because she failed him, but because his soul asked her to carry its work. This projection is not wrong. It is inevitable. It is the soul trying to show you what you long for within. But if the projection is not retracted, if the anima is not seen and embraced as an inner reality, the man remains dependent, forever seeking salvation in another. The journey begins with recognition, to pause and ask, what is it I see in her that belongs to me? That luminous quality, that grace, that wisdom, that mystery, it is a reflection of something waiting to be awakened inside you. Withdraw the projection, not in rejection, but in reverence. Thank her, not for being everything, but for revealing everything that still sleeps within your own soul. This is how the dance becomes conscious. And when it does, you no longer love blindly, you love awake, not clinging, not needing, but recognizing the woman before you is not your missing half. She is a fellow traveler, not a mirror of your longing, but a soul with her own center. And you, finally whole within, can love from truth, not illusion. This is the sacred shift from projection to presence, and in that shift the anima is no longer cast outward. She walks beside you, within you, as a silent guide into the greater self. The shadow and the feminine mystique, the anima, does not always appear in light. She often emerges from shadow, dark, mysterious, irresistible. She comes veiled in projections, cloaked in desire, drenched in fear and fascination. And many men run from her or chase her blindly, never knowing that she lives in the place they most avoid, in the shadow. I have seen it again and again. A man represses emotion, dismisses intuition, fears vulnerability. And in doing so, he pushes the anima into the unconscious. There, in the dark, she gathers power not to punish, but to be heard. She becomes seductive, manipulative, or even dangerous, not because she is evil, but because she is ignored. You fear her not because she threatens you, but because she reminds you who you are beneath the mask. This is the feminine mystique that both attracts and terrifies. She is feeling in a culture that praises logic, depth in a world obsessed with surface, wildness in a life bound by control. She is everything the ego cannot tame, and so she is cast into shadow. But here is the secret I discovered. The anima is never more powerful than when she is integrated from the shadow. You must turn inward, not to control her, but to witness her, face your discomfort, meet your jealousy, your longing, your need for validation. In each she waits, not to shame you, but to show you your humanness. The shadow hides your truest connection to the feminine. And only by walking through it, through your fear of being soft, your terror of not being enough, your guilt for needing love, only then does she rise in her true form, not as fantasy, but as power. She becomes the channel through which your soul speaks. She becomes the ground beneath your authenticity. She becomes the source of your creativity, your empathy, your ability to love without needing to possess. The feminine mystique is no longer a riddle. It becomes a rhythm, one you have learned to move with. So go into the shadow, seek her there, not to conquer, but to meet, not to decode, but to feel. And in that sacred confrontation you will find her not as an echo of your emptiness, but as the song of your wholeness. For the anima, once freed from shadow, becomes the bridge between your ego and your eternal self. The voice of the soul in dreams. There is a time each night when the ego falls asleep, and the gate to the inner world creaks open. In that stillness, between breath and shadow, she speaks. I have heard her. In dreams, the anima comes unguarded, no longer filtered through projection. She rises in raw, symbolic form, sometimes gentle, sometimes terrifying, but always truthful. She does not use words, she speaks in images. You may see a woman in a red dress standing silently at the edge of a forest, or a child you do not recognize whispering your name in a language you somehow understand, or a serpent, or a broken mirror, or a flickering candle in a room filled with water. You wake disturbed, moved, haunted by something you cannot explain. That is her. She is the voice of your soul, trying to reach you through the language of dreams, because in waking life you are too busy to listen. In my own descent, chronicled in the Red Book, it was in dreams that I first heard her clearly. Salome appeared to me, both beautiful and dangerous, offering insight and demanding surrender. She was not a dream character. She was an archetype, a living symbol of the inner feminine, woven from the fabric of the unconscious itself. When a man dreams of the feminine, he often feels a mysterious love, a longing not of the body, but of the soul. It is the anima drawing him inward, not toward a woman, but toward himself. Yet many dismiss these dreams. They say, it was only a dream. But I say there is no such thing as only a dream. Dreams are messages from the self, from the deepest strata of your being. To ignore them is to turn your back on your soul. Learn to listen, keep a journal. Write down each dream upon waking, even fragments. Ask yourself, what does this feminine figure want from me? What is she awakening? What am I resisting? You will begin to notice a pattern, a myth unfolding uniquely for you, a journey toward wholeness mapped not by logic, but by symbol. The anima's whispers at night are invitations to live more deeply by day. They are not puzzles to solve, they are truths to feel, and if you follow her voice with courage, with humility, she will lead you beyond ego, into the realm of love that does not need a reason, the love that makes you whole. The anima's transformation through life, she is not static, she is not a fixed image. The anima is a process, a living, evolving presence within the soul of every man. I have watched her change form across the arc of a man's life, and in her transformation she reshapes his very capacity to love, to create, to become. In youth she appears as the maiden, radiant, unreachable, often romanticized. She stirs lust, longing, fantasy. She arrives in dreams as the beautiful stranger, the spark of wild desire, the muse of poetry and obsession. At this stage, love is projection. The man seeks her in women, not knowing she lives inside him. He is enchanted, but not yet awake. Then comes disillusionment. The outer world cannot sustain the dream. He feels betrayed not by her, but by his own misunderstanding. If he does not resist, the anima shifts. She becomes the mother, a nurturing presence, the source of emotional wisdom. Not only in his relationships, but in his psyche, he begins to feel more. He learns to hold pain, to receive intuition, to accept vulnerability. He no longer loves for possession, but for presence. In midlife, she may become the temptress again, not to regress him, but to test him. She asks, have you learned to love without needing? Can you face the feminine without being consumed? If he succeeds, she transforms once more into the wise woman, the inner sage. Now she speaks clearly in dreams. She no longer distracts, she directs. She becomes the voice of conscience, of higher calling. The man feels a pull not only toward others, but toward the numinous, toward meaning itself. The anima, now fully integrated, becomes the bridge to the self. This is the great alchemy of love, not a chase for the other, but the embrace of what the other reflects within you. Each woman a man has loved, each heartbreak, each fascination was never only about her. It was the anima, shifting shapes, teaching him how to return to himself. So do not be ashamed of your longing. It is sacred, it is the soul seeking its counterpart within, and when the anima is finally honored as inner guide, not outer object, you love not out of hunger but from wholeness. The alchemy of feminine energy love, when true, is not a possession. It is not desire masked as devotion. It is transmutation, a sacred fire that alters the very matter of your soul. And at the center of this mystery I have found her, the anima, the archetype of the inner feminine, who does not merely inspire a man's longing, but refines it. Yes, she is the whisper in dreams, the haunting in music, the ache behind your desire for beauty. But more than this, she is the alchemist, working in silence to transform the base elements of the self into something luminous and whole. When a man encounters a woman who mirrors his anima, he does not simply feel affection, he experiences a psychic alchemy. He becomes stirred not only by her presence, but by something in himself that begins to awaken. He feels moved without knowing why. He becomes softer, more reflective. He weeps more easily, dreams more vividly, and for the first time he feels what it means to be human in all its tenderness. This is not enchantment. It is transformation. The anima carries within her the opposite of the man's outward identity. She is what he lacks, what he has disowned, what he has buried beneath intellect and armor. And when her presence, sinner or outer, touches him, she draws out what is essential. This is the alchemy of the feminine. She does not force, she attracts. She does not conquer, she reveals. She does not speak loudly, she remembers and reminds. Her energy softens the heart hardened by ambition. It invites a man out of competition and into communion. She opens the gates to imagination, intuition, vulnerability, and in this process, love ceases to be possession and becomes participation not just with her, but with the deeper self. I have seen men resist this. I have seen them fear the feminine within, and without label her as weakness, call emotion dangerous, dismiss intuition as irrational. But in truth they feared the dissolution of control. For the anima does not negotiate with the ego, she dissolves it. She takes the man not up toward power, but downward, into his soul, into his wounds, into the secret longing he has hidden from even himself. This descent is frightening, but it is also sacred. Alchemy is never clean. The lead must burn, the dross must rise, and in that crucible of inner feeling a new man is born, one who does not merely chase love, but embodies it, one who does not worship the feminine as fantasy, but integrates her as inner wisdom, one who no longer needs to be admired, but chooses to be authentic. This is the power of feminine energy, not to complete a man, but to awaken him. to strip him of illusion, to draw forth his soul, to teach him that love is not logic, not control, not possession, but the mystery that humbles, refines, and ultimately redeems. Synchronicity in love's embrace. There are moments, quiet and inexplicable, when the fabric of reality seems to shimmer and you find yourself standing before someone who feels known, as if you have met not in this lifetime, but in a place beyond time. These are not accidents, they are synchronicities, and when they occur, it is often the anima who has woven the threads not with hands, but with meaning. You see, the anima does not dwell only in dreams. When she is stirred within, her essence begins to ripple outward, and the world responds. You pass a stranger in a cafe and feel something shift in your chest. You hear a phrase in conversation that mirrors a line from last night's dream. You meet someone whose presence evokes the very emotion your soul has been aching to feel. These are not mere coincidences, they are the language of the self. When the inner world aligns with the outer, synchronicity becomes the bridge, a sacred intersection where psyche and matter meet, where soul calls to soul in symbols disguised as circumstance. In love, this is especially potent. A man may meet a woman and feel an immediate, unexplainable recognition, not just attraction, but the sensation that something long lost has returned. This is the anima's doing. It is her energy, activated within, that has magnetized a moment into existence. She has called forth an outer event to mirror an inner transformation. But here is what I must warn you. This synchronicity is not a guarantee. It is a signal. It does not promise a lasting romance. It does not assure happiness. It simply reveals you are standing at a threshold. What you choose to do next determines whether love becomes transformation or projection. For synchronicity does not control, it invites. It asks, are you awake enough to see what this means? Are you ready to meet not just the other, but yourself in the mirror of love? When a woman enters your life this way, bearing the anima's light, she is not just a person. She is a symbol of your soul's evolution. She arrives to awaken you to your longing, your wounds, your potential. Do not reduce her to fantasy. Do not cling to her out of fear, but also do not run. Be still. Listen. Synchronicity speaks not in answers, but in alignment. It tells you you are ready, ready to love not blindly, but with the depth born of inner work, ready to receive the feminine not as escape, but as invitation to wholeness. This is love's true embrace, not a rescue, but a recognition. A sacred moment when the outer world meets your inner truth, and something timeless moves between two souls. The anima, when integrated, calls forth the world you are meant to live in, a world not of chance, but of meaning. And love in such a world is no longer random. It becomes destiny answered, integrating the anima for true connection. A man does not find the woman he seeks. He becomes conscious of her within. To truly love, a man must journey inward, into the wild forest of his own soul, where she, the anima, has long whispered through dreams and shadows. She is not merely a fantasy, nor the projection cast upon the faces of passing women. She is the soul image, the eternal feminine within the muse, the maiden, the sorceress, the sage. She is every emotional current he avoids, every intuitive nudge he mistrusts. She is his feeling function, repressed and forgotten in a world that rewards intellect but punishes vulnerability. Integration begins not in conquest, but in surrender. He must sit with the ache of his own heart. He must let go of the illusion that love is something to be acquired, possessed, or earned. For as long as he seeks her outside, he will encounter only reflections of his longing, never the source of it. The anima is not there to complete him, but to awaken him. She appears in dreams as the mysterious woman, seductive, nurturing, terrifying. Sometimes she comes as a lover, sometimes as a mother, sometimes as a witch. She is all that he has disowned in himself, his tenderness, his creativity, his soul, deep longing for union. And until he listens to her voice within, he will mistake emotional fusion for love and fantasy for connection. To integrate her, he must honor her as real, he must welcome the moods that rise like waves, no longer fighting them, but listening. He must allow himself to feel fully grief, awe, vulnerability, and devotion. He must sit in silence and meet the living symbol she presents. She might speak through a poem, a melody, a sudden sorrow that brings him to his knees. This is not weakness, this is initiation. Only then, when she is known within, can he meet her without, not as a savior or a goddess, but as a woman in her fullness, free to be herself. In this sacred recognition, love becomes reverence. There is no need to possess her, for he no longer fears abandonment. There is no need to idealize her, for he has made peace with the imperfect mystery of his own soul. He no longer seeks a mirror to validate his worth, but a partner in the great unfolding. The anima, once integrated, becomes the bridge to the self. She binds his heart not through dependency, but through resonance. She inspires him not to escape the world, but to serve it with depth, with poetry, with fierce compassion. A man who has integrated his anima does not fall in love blindly, he loves consciously. He knows that every glance contains a myth, that every embrace echoes with archetypes. He is not ruled by his longing, he understands it. He is not consumed by his passion, he channels it. His love is not a hunger, but a gift. And in the eyes of a woman who has done her own inner work, who has met her animus and made him conscious, there is a silent recognition, two souls meeting not in illusion but in truth. This is the love that endures, not because it is perfect, but because it is whole.